Hello, everyone. It is I, the Black Manga Critic. I've returned from work and life and all these other, things to bring you episode two, all right, of the all-women panel discussion on a whole plethora of things, right? This one's going to be on manga publishing. Okay, that's important to remember, right? Maybe we'll go on a tangent. We'll go on tangents, talk about other things. I am currently waiting for one other person to join, but let's see what happens. Okay, let's see what happens with that. But basically, it's going to be on manga publishing. We're going to be talking about a few different things. But before we get into that, I want to just introduce. Well, I mean, they're going to introduce themselves. Two people who are on this panel, Morgana and Zandra. And if you could just, say a couple things about what you do, what you're looking forward to in terms of this discussion, and, if you want to advertise anything, I have absolutely no problem with that. I'll go.
All right.
Someone wants to go first.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm Morgana. I am the manga manager at Comicopia in Boston. It's a comic shop in Kenmore Square. My job is what it sounds like. I manage our manga inventory and stock, and I coordinate our convention shows and things like that. Currently, we're getting ready for Anime Boston. So if you're going to Anime Boston, you should check us out there. We have a really, really big booth with like 10,000 books. Wow. And we're currently unpacking all that. I'm currently unpacking all that this coming week, which is a lot of fun after spending several weeks making sure all the orders are correct. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Very nice, very nice. And Zandra.
Hey, hi. I'm Alexandra, but you can call me Zandra. I started out as a game designer. And I did a lot of writing during that. And through a weird series of events, I'm now a light novel author and illustrator also.
Yay.
And that's been a fun ride. In a few months, it's going to be an entire year since I've done that. And it's going pretty well. I currently have 2 books out for that I've self-published. Short titles being Squid Maids and Cat Wishes. And they're all basically I've since learned, I confirmed since last time that this is actually an isekai light novel. So that's cool. And it's been very refreshing to be able to just put my writing and apply it to basically all of the stuff that I really liked about stories I tended to focus on, but make them more self-actualizing, because I basically do gender feelsy light novels, which are basically just I'm trying to in sort of a way reclaim the gender bender trope, but cool. Actually make it empowering and cool. And gosh, self-publishing is a trip.
And I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this topic. Because again, you are a content creator, you're a creator, you write and draw light novels, and I think that's really that's going to be particularly important for the sort of first sort of discussion point that we're going to be talking about. So the first discussion point, if any of you are watching, is going to be manga scantlations. That is, and we have to start with that because I think. If we started talking about it at the end, we might have people that be like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna trickle out because I've already watched the rest of the video." No, you are going to be here at the beginning of this video.
Gotta listen.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, and this is what we're gonna talk about, and you have to listen. All right. So let's start talking about that. Let's start talking about manga scantlations. How we feel about manga scantlations. 2. Sort of what do we have to say about individuals that are large sort of proponents of manga scanlating, and 3, where do we sort of go? How do we sort of move away from that? What are sort of strategies that we think are that are already sort of like being implemented or could be implemented to sort of move away from scanlations.
This is a really big topic.
Yeah. I mean, like it's okay. Like
it's
it's wherever you want to start with it.
I just want to say now, I am not guiltless. I have certainly read scanlations, even though I'm somebody who now makes money off of selling manga. That said, I don't know that there's any manga that I've read in scans that I loved that I didn't end up buying once I knew it was available in English. I try very hard to do that. And that definitely came as I got older and I had my own income and I started to understand more about how pirating affects individuals and creators, which may seem distant to some people who don't create for a living or make their money off of the things that they create. So yeah, it's complex because I understand both sides of this. I will tell you all now, regardless of where you stand, do not come into my shop and say, oh, I read that online, I don't need to buy it. Even if it's true, because guess what, buddy? That's my paycheck. It's just rude. Again, I'm not gonna make a judgment unless you say something like that, and I have to, bite my tongue. But I've definitely also had people who tried to defend their reading of scanlations at me at work. Again, when I'm trying to make my living, and I'm not making money off of the manga in the same way that a creator is, but it's still part of my livelihood as well. And I remember one of the weirdest defenses that I was ever given to me was somebody was buying non-manga comics, like Western comics, and they asked me what I read, and I was like, oh, I'm the manga manager. I mostly read manga, although I do read other stuff as well. And they're like, oh, I read that online. I'm like, well, you just read it online, and I'm like, well, no, I like to support the industry and whatnot. And they're like, well, I read One Piece online because it's not like it's in color anyway. And I was like, a lot of work goes into it regardless. Like, I don't, it being in color. I mean, Walking Dead's not in color either, buddy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And let me tell you, non-manga comics readers are real weird about black and white comics. They do not like reading things that are not in color, and that's also a strange.
Yeah, that is strange. That is strange.
Yeah, it's wow. It's like, oh, do you watch like that anime? No, I mean, there's not like there's no songs. Like, right, why would I eat?
That's so weird. I mean, like, I guess in some ways I kind of like understand. Like there's a difference between like, so like for me, I like when you say, oh, I don't understand why, like, it's like, I think generally I get like the sort of logic like that they're trying to sort of use in a sense, but it's still like I don't like accept it, I guess. I'm just like, no, like really, like it's the lack of color that's like why you will just not read like a particular like medium or something like that, or a text or whatever, like it's because there's no color. Like there are a lot
of reasons that a lot of excuses people make to not read manga, and I think that at the end of the day it has something to do with I don't like to try new things. But agreed. You can't challenge customers on that in the moment because you would like to make a sale. So and you don't want to alienate them either. And I understand that it can be hard to try new things also. But yeah, I get some weird feedback. But yeah, and so basically for myself personally, I definitely have very mixed feelings about scanlations. Mostly that it is a problem in the manga publishing industry and certainly in the retail side of things. But I also understand the reasons people read them, not only because financially or economically it's more viable for them, but also because there are communities that pop up around scans, and people are big proponents of that. And I think that manga fandom stateside is very much community based and very much a part of identity. So it's about more than the content itself.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's challenging, or there's not a real. I think that's the challenge that publishers and fans are having. They're not quite understanding the whole of what they're trying to tell each other is part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Gotcha. And that'll sort of like lead into like sort of like a later discussion about in terms of our other topics, but particularly the last topic. But Zandra, like, how do you feel about the sort of situation in terms of like manga publishing and scanlations as a creator, as someone who writes and draws light novels and is self-publishing and is like works extremely hard to put out their content, put out their creations. How do you feel about it? What are your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, I have complex feelings on the whole thing. It's like, of course it's stuff like, okay, I'm a tiny creator. I like oh, okay, it's good. And like, I don't really put any sort of like DRM or stuff on my content. It's just like, usually it's like it's available online. I have my patrons, and like the DRM is the fact that it's actually a physical product most of the time too. But like, I've been lucky enough never to actually have my content pirated, and if it did, it would like hurt me a lot because it's my main source of income. Like, that said, there's kind of a sticky point because like most of what I do is very niche. I like since like I said before, like I make mostly like just like very positive gender bender stuff, and my audience is very like, usually my audience will be folks who are searching for that kind of content, and it is very rare, at least, okay, this is my impression, this is how like I've perceived the market so far. It is extremely rare for that kind of niche content to be translated and available here. So a lot of the series and stuff that folks will read are just like, are never something that are available here. So the only way to for them to engage with the content, short of learning Japanese, is to consume them as scanlations. And usually that means that like it's that because like a lot of folks I know and a lot of my readers are like looking for that kind of specific content, and usually a lot of the series available just overall tend to fall short or tend to dip into like, I don't like using that word, but like they're more problematic because usually they're like they fall prey to some like really, really negative tropes, but like it's pretty much all there is. And but there are like some gems in the rough, but it's like it's real hard to get them legitimately. And to be fair, I don't know a lot of folks who will read this scanlation, love the series, and then buy the original in Japanese just to like encourage the author.
Yeah.
And, like, much as
I have heard that some people do that. Sorry, I have heard that some people do that, where they'll be like, well, I have to read the scan because it's not available to me, but I will buy it in Japanese, which is a nice workaround. Because for a while my rule was I will read a scanlation if it's of something that I cannot otherwise acquire in English. You know, and now I don't do that as much because I have enough trouble keeping up with all the stuff that's available in English. It's a great problem to have. But yeah, that's the problem is the demand is very high for a lot of different things, and publishers don't always know if they can justify licensing certain things because they're not sure how much they're going to be able to sell, especially if people have already read the scans.
Yeah. Like I don't know the specifics of like how much a how much a scanlation will boost actual sales. I don't know those numbers, but like it's kind of it's a weird situation because like the fact that there's content like this actually usually drives people to my stuff just because they're like searching for as much as possible, and then usually I get a lot of folks who like basically like will talk on Twitter like, oh, I wish there was like stuff like this but positive, and people go, oh, you should read this, and that's usually how like they I get some word of mouth stuff. So like it's really like it's really weird because like I like people pirating my content would wreck me a lot, but I benefit from indirectly from the fact that there is content out there. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if there wasn't this much content, like people would still search for it and like still come to my my light novels through that. But I feel like I don't know. It's I feel it's in the weird place, and there is some advantage to like having this sort of shared vocabulary where enough people read certain series that are popular enough that lots of people know them, but not popular enough to actually make it here.
Yeah.
For example, like has Only Sense Online been translated? Is that
which one?
Only Sense Online.
Not that I know of. No.
Because like that's one of the ones that like people keep referring, and like there's it's popular enough that people like it gets involved in discussions, and that like leads to like, okay, well, what other stuff is there that's available like this? And yeah, it's in a weird spot. I'm not sure like what sensible solutions there could be short of just like organizing like, okay, folks, like everyone who's into this, we're gonna order a bunch of these from Japan.
Right.
So like, everyone who likes this, like, cool, we get like there's a new volume out, so everyone get yours for to look good in your in your shelves. Yeah,
I also think that there is an expectation from people who prefer reading scans as things are coming out that publishers take too long to print something, or to have digital copies available, not considering how much goes into the actual process of going through all the legality of it, like obtaining the license, translating it, doing the layout, all these steps that take quite some time, and are going to be different for every publisher depending on their relationships with Japanese publishers and their workforce and their priorities, and the fact that, like Viz, for example, can put out content quickly, but they have a very close working relationship or are a part of like Shueisha Shogakukan in Japan. So like this is, they can do the Shonen Jump stuff, but they're still like not even fast enough. Like the scans go out like immediately, and so like there's a certain amount of I don't want to use the word entitlement, but there's an expectation that fans have that they should be able to read this as soon as available. And I'm gonna at the risk of sounding like a grumpy old person, just tell you guys, like, y'all don't know how good it is. No. I read scanlations because there wasn't anything else. Once upon a time, back in the days of GeoCities and Angel Fire.
Oh, gosh. Angel Fire. Wow, GeoCities.
There's an awful lot of content, and I understand too the need for content that's not available in English, because there's plenty of stuff that I want to see coming over, and I harass Seven Seas once a month in their the surveys that they do, like, what do you want licensed? And I'm like, the same 3 titles every single time. Come Eroica with love. Bring it back.
Has Ame no Chihara been translated?
Come on, guys, hurry up. And I feel bad. Some poor intern probably has to go through those, like, oh, it's this lady again. with her like 30-year-old manga titles. You know, I'm sorry. You know, so and that's a way to make your voice heard. But even then, licenses can't always be obtained by every you know, North American publisher because of legal reasons or because the Japanese publishers don't think that it'll sell. I mean, the fact that we're getting vintage titles right now is really kind of remarkable because for the longest time, publishers didn't want to, you know, license out Devilman, and they didn't want to license out Captain Harlock. I mean, Devilman in particular, they thought, oh no, we can never license this because Americans are too Christian.
Yep.
And here it is. We're expecting it in May. You know, original OG Devilman. Like, we're ready. And they also thought that, like, why would anybody want something that's, you know, 30, 40 years old? Because it's not popular in Japan anymore. So why would it be popular elsewhere? Although I think something like Captain Harlock, you know, or Devilman has, like, you know, sustained power in Japan, continues to be beloved, but in a different way. It's very nostalgic. But
yeah, like we here in Quebec, we grew up with Captain Harlock and like the Rose of Versailles and Candy, because like, oh yeah, that's the cartoons they translated for France, and we got them too. Yeah. So there's a lot of folks who are like, heck yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Hold on, I am contacting Deb. I think she's gonna try to hop in.
Oh yeah.
For a little bit. So let's see, because I know. I mean, like, so far it's been like awesome. So far it's been awesome, and like I think just like a lot of some of the stuff that we've talked about, right? Like one thing that you mentioned that I think was really important in relation to the sort of the conversation about manga scanlations and people sort of like, you know, having this lack of, like, I don't know, patience, I guess is probably the word, right? And it's like, you could, like, so for me, one thing that helped a ton with that was just saying, oh, look at all these other like manga that are in English that are published that like I can go like read like the first volumes of and stuff like that, and other volumes, or I could like go on, you know, and read them digitally on websites and stuff like that, legal websites and everything. And I think a big part of like this a big part of that issue has to do with like, you know, like sexism, bigotry, homophobia, transphobia, all these other things, right? That just like, you know, that just stop people from, you know, reading things that I think they really, really enjoy if they could like get out of their own way, you know? And I like, right. So for me, like, I'm not going to go around and tell people like I have like tons and tons of patience, because I'm like, I'm you know, I'm okay when it comes to that. You know, but I will say that one thing that has helped like tremendously is reading other stuff. You know, like especially like like with like the and I think like just kind of into some other things, like I think like Viz, like that the Viz has been really, really helpful in terms of like weekly Shonen Jump stuff, because the majority of the manga now that I read like with Viz like will be like on the website. Except for Haikyuu, because like I don't know what's going on with that. I think that's also like a weird licensing thing or something like that that's going on, where they don't have every where they're not like super caught up with the Japanese releases. But that's not something that wait, what happened?
No, to say there are sometimes stipulations in contracts and things that prevent things from coming quickly enough or at all, or like having digital copies. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility that there's other factors at work.
Yeah. It's like something that surprised me. Like I recently like ran a Kickstarter for like my second book, and like it was ready. It was digitally done. It was like basically, okay, I'll just like take it to the printer and hit print. And the Kickstarter ran like early January. I said, yeah, I think February sounds good for me to like ship everything. I've just started shipping them last week because like, oh, all different things happen. Like, oh, people like, it was brought to my attention, oh, there's like this consistent layout problem in the whole book that, okay, I'll just like take a few days to fix everything. And then the printer, oh, well, we don't actually have the paper for your cover, but we'll get it in a week. And then just like all these little things, and like, gosh, like when I control practically every step of the process, and it still took me way longer than I expected. I can't even imagine for like a major publisher, like all the other things that can like play into it.
Yeah, and they have multiple titles coming out at once, and they have, you know, not only do they have to just do the normal job of editing it all, but they also have to make sure the translations are accurate and things are spelled properly and the word bubbles are all like matching where they're supposed to be, you know.
Yeah. Maybe we can move into, I'm gonna swap something like, so the next thing that we can talk about is like publicizing manga in the United States. Like that's something that I think there was one thread that was like really great. It was like maybe a couple months ago. I'm pretty sure Deb, I'm pretty sure Deb was a part of that thread. But if she hops in, then like maybe she can talk a little bit about that. But it was cool because they were talking about ways that we can publicize like manga in the United States, ways we can do that better, you know, and stuff like that. And like how do you feel about that? Like, and I think a sort of question that we can start with for the discussion is, how do you feel like do you feel like the ways that manga are publicized in the United States are adequate, or do you feel like publications can do a lot better or somewhat better? Like how do you feel about that? Like, and this is just like, you know, just generally, like, you know, it doesn't have to be sort of, oh, I read this book and here are these stats and da because they are out there, but just like generally, how do you feel about it?
This is an interesting question because I pay very close attention. So it's, you know, because it's my job. I have to say, you know, looking at it as a retailer and comparing it to how non-manga comics are advertised, I feel like manga is not doing so bad. That being said, I mean, there are always, you know, more ways to reach people, I'm sure. I follow every manga publisher on social media, and I follow Anime News Network and various other, you know, Crunchyroll, et cetera. So I am getting this news all the time, whether I want it or not. it pops up.
Yep.
So I guess, and it occurred to me at some point that not everybody does that who's into manga necessarily, which I guess kind of perplexed me, because if you're into it, then why wouldn't you like be paying attention? So yeah, I don't really know what a better option. I mean, social media is a huge tool, and it's something that, like, for example, we're trying to use more at my store, and we've seen some good feedback from it already. And again, I think, you know, I see Viz using social media, I see 7Cs using social media, et cetera, all the time. I don't really see Marvel and DC using it that much. Gotcha. I mean, or if they are, they're only promoting certain things and not, you know, not the full breadth. Whereas, like, I'll see, you know, Viz mention some rando character from some series because it's their birthday and they wanted to post something. So to me, that's like, oh, you're paying attention. Like, people who are working on your manga care about it and know about it, remember things about it, like enough to, you know, put stuff out there. But I have a bias, and I'm also, again, paying really close attention, so I might not be the best person to ask.
I think that was great, because like I think that sort of also kind of, you know, makes me think about the way that like sort of access, living situations, stuff like that, demographics, like, so I think for some people, it's, you know, let's say like it might be a bit easier because like maybe they have, you know, they have the internet, they can look up websites and things like that. I remember like when I was a kid, like my parents didn't like buy like a computer until I think I was like 16 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So before that, it was like, yeah, maybe I knew about like, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh! And like Pokemon Adventures mangas and stuff like that, but it was like I didn't have like a way to sort of like, you know, look around and see like what was going on and everything like that until, you know, I talked with people. Even when I got the computer, it was still like, you know, I had to like talk with people who were really up on the up and up and who knew about that stuff and who could sort of guide me to certain websites and things like that, so I could find out those the news or whatever. But I think a lot of it is that, and then like sometimes, you know, it's also just like libraries, you know, stocking manga, period.
Yes.
Because like and then that kind of like jumps to again like ideas of like you know, libraries who might not want to stock things because of, oh, the content's too much, we can't have that, you know. And like sometimes like there are actual, like I don't know how like like some libraries, I think there might be actual things that get in their way where they actually can't like stock particular things because the content might be too mature and their classifications and stuff like that. So I generally I get that, but I think to me like I know a bunch of people. My fiance and I, one of our like close friends, like is a librarian, and one of her big things is like, you know, going to conventions, hosting panels with other librarians to like say like, hey, like if you want to get manga into your libraries, or if you want to like set up like conventions at your libraries and stuff like that for like anime and manga, like here are ways that you can go about it and everything. So I think so. I don't think that like, oh, there's no way that we can put the manga into the libraries. I don't think like that I don't think that's really an issue. I think like a lot of that has to do with like the people that are running those libraries and what they choose to spend their like budgets on and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I will say, and this is something that we tell people a lot, and it's not just applying to manga, but comics in general. You can request that your library carry something, you know, and not all libraries will be able to, again, because of the reasons you're stating. But if there is an expressed interest in something, they will take that into consideration when looking at their budget. I think libraries are great, and that's something that I often tell people who read scans of stuff that is available in English, like just go to the library. You know, also not necessarily an option for everyone, but it's definitely there for a good portion of people, and it's underutilized. I think that I don't know, libraries are great. I know that Mike Toole, who works over at Anime News Network, and I've been on a few panels with, always talks about getting manga from libraries because that's where he gets a lot of his.
Cool.
You know, so
yeah, like I should really like look more into the libraries I have over here, but there is like a manga cafe close to like in my neighborhood that functions a lot like this. And like that's and like I'm also a bad person to ask when it comes to like discoverability and stuff, because I don't follow any of the publishers or the big like names. I pretty much like, that's across media. Pretty much all of my media conception comes through word of mouth and recommendation to people. And usually I will like learn of new series and stuff from like my vast network of friends, like gushing about them and like, oh, okay, cool. Yes, this sounds like up my alley. Yes, okay, I'll look into that. And like I should at some point buckle down and like find some like good ways to be more informed. But I'm usually just like, might just be an overwhelmed thing. Like I'm just doing so many things. Like, oh, it's on the list. At one point I will like sit down and find some good sources of news. But in the meantime, it's just like friends talking about stuff, and me when I come across, I'm like, yes, okay, cool. This is the thing I heard about, and jumping on it. And yeah, it's, I mean, the weird spot relative to that, but I'm glad that there's like at least a few local options for me. So I don't know how it is in the US, being in Canada, but also here's this whole bilingual thing. So for example, I live in Montreal, and the Manga Cafe has basically like shelves and shelves and shelves of manga and the English language shelf.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of French language manga, but like a much shorter selection of English language manga. Still enough to do stuff like Ayatati, and that's how I finally got to like start checking out Delicious in Dungeon and like So I'm a Spider and stuff like that. And I'm like really stoked about it. I'm like, okay, I should probably just like look into like clearing out shelf space for those. But it's like availability here is weird because of that. And I'm still like Montreal, like Quebec City is like practically only French language in terms of like availability. Remembering how I usually like got my manga, I usually had to like special order it back then because like it was like hard to just pick up in stores. Here it's more 50-50, but even then like there's a much more like bigger market for French language. But I'm pretty sure that as soon as you start going west from here, it's all going to be in English and it's fine.
Yeah.
But
France also has a super healthy manga publishing industry and has for a lot longer than we have in the States, which I'm really jealous about. They've had a lot of things longer than we've had. You know, we're hopefully finally going to get Rose of Versailles from Udon this year.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
They've had it in France since like the 80s at least. So.
Yeah, I grew up watching that. So
yeah.
It was so surprising to me to hear it was not an institution in the US.
Nope. People have access to the anime, but not the manga so far. So sorry, my cat is very friendly.
Very adorable.
Oh, that's cool. She's a lap cat.
Yes.
So I guess like, how do we feel like how do we feel like manga like publishers or like just like businesses can do better? I guess actually like an actual question like I have for you, Morgana, is like what sort of goes into your job sort of like as a manga manager, and like what are sort of like strategies that you've used to like publicize like manga and like try to get individuals to like read more manga or just get into manga in general?
So we've always stocked manga ever since the store opened in '89, and I've only been working in the store for the last almost 3 years now. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot of is social media, you know, more than we were before. And my goal with the social media is to make sure we always, you know, like new comics come out on Wednesdays. And so we were like, oh yeah, we should definitely do like new comic book Wednesday posts. And I was like, okay, when we do that, we have to make sure there's manga in that picture. Like we have to make sure, because this is what we do, and manga are comics. So for me, it's definitely been letting people know that manga is here in the store. Not here, I'm home, but you know, in the store at all, because a lot of people didn't know. Like I started using our store Twitter more frequently recently, and somebody we did a pre-registration event with Anime Boston where they came and took registrations, and we had a sale. And somebody came in and she was like, I didn't know you guys existed until I saw the thing on Twitter. And now she like comes in every week. So like, it's not so much that she didn't know that she didn't want to read manga, but that she didn't even know it existed. And so it was like, you know,
Gotcha.
So a lot of it's been focused on letting people know that we have it at all, and tapping that market. Because comic shops are struggling right now, and we need to, you know, use whatever we can to boost our presence. But I do have to say it is very challenging to get people to start reading manga if they're not already open to the idea. Like I mentioned before, people don't like to read things in black and white, or so they claim. I definitely, when I recommend things, I will always, you know, if somebody's like looking for like you know, a horror book, I will recommend things that are non-manga, and then I will also go over and be like, and here's Uzumaki by Junji Ito. Like, this is a really good horror book. And sometimes people will be like, wow, this is really interesting. And sometimes people will be like, oh, I don't read backwards. Which is another thing that I get a lot. People do not like reading right to left. There are a lot of barriers. And there are things where if manga publishers, if North American manga publishers changed the way they did things, then they would be alienating manga readers.
Yeah.
But right now they could be tapping a larger market. And how do you walk that line? And part of the problem I definitely think is just that people are not open to change, or open to trying new things. I do think, and this is something that I don't know how to fix. I do think that there is, even among manga readers, some lingering racism regarding Japanese works and Japan as a whole. I don't think it's malicious. I mean, in any way that racism can't be malicious. I don't know, like that's, but like I think that it's unknown to them. They don't realize they have these biases against it. They're just like, oh well, it's different. It's different. It's different. It's not what I'm used to. And that's a way of I don't know, not trying new things. I will say any manga that's very entrenched in like Japanese cultural stuff does not do super well for us, even if it's stuff that I really like Descending Stories is a really great series, but it's about Rakugo, which is extremely Japanese. Like it's it's a very so it's a hard sell. Even though I put it on displays all the time, and I would love to recommend it to people more, it's not what people are looking for. So it's a weird balance. Like, how do you appease the people who are already reading manga, and how do you reach out to those people who don't know anything about it?
It's like that kind of like topic also like makes me go like because there's like especially, okay, I don't know if it's the same for manga, but I do remember there's like recently a thing where and stop me if I'm like going down the wrong path here, but like as a queer woman, there are like sometimes like when a series is translated, specifically here I'm talking about Dragon Maid, who was like translated, like they like there was some bit of like queer erasure where they like there was a character who said something that could be left up to interpretation, and they translated it to be like very clearly her saying she's not gay,
right?
Whereas like and later on in the story, like I mean like I think the actual like pocket of the like Blu-ray set shows like her and another lady like being married or something. Like, so it's like, oh, it's like there's a little bit of worry that and like there's degrees to this, the spectrum, but like if you in the process of localization or adapting something to make it more palatable, are you erasing something that's actually very important? And like there's always like, as a creator, it's something that always like also that's in the back of my mind also, like how much like should I like be sure to like write when I'm passionate about and such, and like is there like how should I like cater what I'm making, adjust what I'm making to cater to people, and are there segments of the population that if I cater to them would make me more money, but like they like ethically maybe not people I should be catering to,
right?
It's like if you change this, it'll make people who like don't like reading about other cultures interested in this book, but I feel these people should like learn to accept other cultures and not have content made for them. But it's also the whole thing about, well, capitalism kind of requires you to be able to like make money to survive, and it's this whole thing. I've been lucky enough to be able to write the stuff that like and without compromising my vision, and still make a living off of it, and that's pretty awesome. But that's just me. There's always that angle to it of like getting more folks to read things, but also without losing something important in the process.
Yeah, that's interesting to me about Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, because that's, if I remember, that's 7 Seas, and they publish a whole bunch of lesbian fiction. So they publish a bunch of Yuri. They did My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, and they're publishing the sequel. And then in a couple months, they're gonna have The Bride Was a Boy, which is an autobiographical story about a trans woman. So like, it's really interesting to me that they would make that call on something that is widely accepted to be kind of a cute lesbian story.
Also, I think this was the anime, not the manga. So this could be two entirely different pipelines.
Okay, that is different then. Yes. Okay, sorry. All right.
Okay.
Because I was going to be like, wait a minute, like, that doesn't seem right.
I'm glad to hear.
Of lesbians right now. How dare they?
I'm glad to hear. Then that probably means, on the manga side, things are like more true, like more accurate.
Yes, but that's something that that is a huge concern. I mean, okay, I'm gonna make a confession here. I'm a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh. And in the original dub, they did change all the names except for Yugi's, and I was always really, when I found out that they were changed, when I first was watching it, I had no idea because I was a kid, and then I found out a couple of years later that they had changed all the names. I was mad that they would do that, and I did feel like it was kind of erasing a culture, and they did it too with Yokai Watch in the anime, and I'm pretty sure in the manga as well, because it's aimed at kids. I guess they don't want to they want to localize it such that kids can relate to it, but like there are Japanese American kids with like the kid's name is Keita and they change it to Nate, and I'm like, there are kids in Japan, in America probably named Keita. Like that's not impossible. Like to what point is it appropriate to, or there are little white boys who have friends named Keita. Like it's not like, it's like it's not like we don't know any Japanese people. Like no, like it's very strange, and I kind of thought we had gotten beyond that point in dubbing and localization. And when Yokai Watch came out and I found that out, I was kind of disappointed. I was like, come on, guys, like.
Yeah, like goodness knows there is enough Nate representation already in me.
Right, yes. It's true. And I understand changing the names of like all the Pokemon, because like a lot of their names in Japanese are puns, and like you want them to be like relatable to kids. I understand that, or like changing the names of the yokai and Yokai Watch, fine. But the names of the human characters, I definitely had a problem with.
Yeah, because they're based on actual cultures like that exist.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of the French manga, my understanding is like they do that a lot. They change the names a lot.
They do, yeah. I think even Captain Harlock, whose name is Harlock.
Albator. Yes.
Yeah, Albator. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
But like, why? Why do you do that? It's just as weird a name. Like it's not.
And there's like is it Great Mazinger, Grandizer? I don't follow those series at all. The one with like the golden horns on the side.
Yeah. I think that's Grandizer.
Yeah, in France, it's Goldorak.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which is another thing. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's just like change it to something else that like just rolls off the tongue easier when you say it in French. I don't know.
I guess.
It's always been baffling to me this whole thing, because like no, my names are important.
Yeah. And I think like usually at least like a lot of like manga readers that I know, like generally like not only are annoyed when they see that, but like are usually will keep the Japanese like titles of like the manga that they're reading. So like I mean like probably so like a lot of people like, at least for me, like I still have a hard time like calling like Shokugeki no Soma Food Wars.
Food Wars, yeah.
I do that now because it's like generally people like, oh, Food Wars, I get that.
Yeah.
But like but like I understand it. Like I understand like okay, food, like it's a title, I'm gonna sort of roll with that, but I'm always gonna come back to Shokugeki no Soma. But like, or like Boku no Hero. Like I still call it Boku no Hero. Like even though it's like it's kind of weird. And people have said like, no, like My Hero Academia makes more sense. I'm like, okay, but like I like Boku no Hero Academia, like because like that's how I like see it. And I think like sometimes those titles are really important, especially when it comes to Shokugeki no Soma, because Shokugeki is like that's like the crux of like the story of the way that like, you know, battles unfold and stuff like that. Food Wars is kind of like, I don't know, something about it just seems kind of like blah.
Well, and the pun is missing, right? Because isn't the main character's name Soma?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a double entendre. But and that's the thing too, is that so many titles in Japanese will have things like that you can't really translate well. You know, or into English, and I mean, I think it's valuable to change the names, the titles of things, because then I think otherwise you would have a lot far fewer people would buy the books if they were impronounceable. Because I do think there are casual readers who don't necessarily collect a ton of manga who still help boost the sales of things like Tokyo Ghoul, or you know, like these big One Piece, these big names, and that's like all they read in terms of manga. But you know, they need something that is recognizable, and I think Food Wars is among those. You know, kind of everybody kind of knows what it is. I have to say another funny story. I definitely had somebody come up to me once looking for Watamote and use the full Japanese title on me, and I was like, "Oh, you mean it's your guys' fault? I never, et cetera, et cetera." And they're like, "How did you know?" And I was like, first of all, if you didn't think I was gonna get it, why did you say it in Japanese? Second of all, it's my job. Like, well, buddy, like, this is what I do. So it can be very confusing though for booksellers who don't necessarily have me on their staff, or someone like me, you know, and some kid comes up and is like, "Where's Shingeki no Kyojin?" You know, and you're like, "Oh, that's on Titan." But you know, your average Barnes and Noble employee is going to be like, "I've never heard of that in my life. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." And if you search it, you know, on Amazon, you're not going to find it either. You know, it's going to be like,
that's true.
This is making me reconsider my whole naming scheme for my books, considering that like I call this book Cat Wishes for short, but the actual full title is My Friends and I Were Granted 3 Wishes by a Cat Goddess, and I swear I got distracted when my turn came around. And like, if you search for Cat Wishes on Amazon, you will eventually find it because cat and wishes are in the title.
Right.
But that's tricky, and like when like my search engine optimization is real bad. Because like not everyone calls it. Sometimes people just like abbreviate it to My Friends and I Were Granted 3 Wishes and stops there, and that's I can't even. Oh gosh, if I get to like translate it or localize it at some point, I'm setting myself up.
Yeah, and I have to tell you,
a lot of work.
I as somebody who has to reorder all the light novels that we carry, I hate long titles. They are the worst. Because also sometimes the distributors that I buy through don't necessarily have a great like search engine or like great quality control. So I'll type in like, "Is it wrong to try to pick up girls in a dungeon?" And you know, I'll type in the volume number, but it's like the volume number is not actually there in the results, or there's like 10 different versions of this. You know, there's "Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?" Sword Oratoria, and you know, is there, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so yes, it's very challenging, let me tell you.
Oh no.
Think about it.
Yeah, I should think about how I'm like, if I ever move beyond self-publishing, how I'm going to do this. Because also like just on like these versions on itch.io, the titles have gotten so long that the price no longer appears because it appears at the end of the title. But no, it just, now the title just like can't appear in full. So the price has been like pushed off of you have to click to figure out how much it's worth, which is probably something I should just poke Itch about because they're pretty good about that. But it's
you never even considered.
yeah. Cause like, I'm sure Leaf at some point when like who would ever name something that with that long of a title? Well,
you and the Japanese. That is the answer.
But it's cute. I mean, yeah, like it's interesting because like I think like I generally like titles like that. I think they're funny, they're cute, like they're really nice. Like they do wonderful things for their texts, and for like publicizing them. Like I think like on that side it's like cool. But yeah, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, look at all this work like that's like that goes into it because that subsequently goes into it because like of the long title.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to sort of like sort of spotlight that really interested me while I was sort of like listening to this conversation was the way that like a lot that goes into the not only just like manga publishing, right, but just like publishing like text and like light novels, novels, well no, light novels are novels, like, but like poetry, whatever, right, is like the ways in which like you have to really do that work while you're creating the thing. That like that's something that you have to keep in mind. Like it's not just like, oh, here's this publisher, right? Especially if you're self-publishing, right? Like you're doing, Zandra, where like a lot of that work in terms of like publishing like comes down to you, and like while you're creating it, like how do I think about my demographic? Like how do I think about publicizing to my like advertising to my demographic? How do I think about advertising to people that probably are not the demographic that I'm trying to push towards? That's really interesting. Like there's like sort of levels to it. It's like starting from the creator up to like the people that are publishing the text, and then the distributors like yourself, Morgana, who had to like do more work. So that to me is like really interesting. I think a lot of people don't understand that's like a very like core part of it, that it's like they're sort of like publishing, I guess, like tiers or like levels to it. Deb, hello. Hello, how are you?
Oh, sorry,
Hello?
take a while.
Deb?
Yes, hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Sorry about the mix-up. I didn't realize it was daylight savings time.
Oh no, the same thing happened to me this morning. Like I woke up and I was like, oh no, I lost an hour and this is not good. Like I gotta like move. So yes, daylight saving time is always like one of those. It's either like really great or it's horrible. But all right, so if you would like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit, tell us like people that are watching this via live stream or like later on when they're going to be watching this video, who you are, generally what you do, and yeah, and then we'll move into sort of maybe going back to talking about sort of like manga, like publicizing manga, because we were talking about manga scanlations, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about that too. But let's start with like you sort of talking about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then we'll move into the discussion.
Okay. I'm a freelance writer, so I write for Publishers Weekly and for Anime News Network. That's kind of it.
Cool. Okay. And so I was really excited to have you on this live stream, because like I definitely like follow you pretty, like it's awesome. Like you're awesome. You do a lot of great work. And I like some of the Twitter like threads that you've been a part of or have started are like phenomenal, and they really do a great job of informing individuals who don't have maybe like the same levels of access that you do or others do, about like just like those the little, sometimes the little things in the industry that people don't know about, that sort of help avoid assumptions that people do make about like manga publishing, content creators, stuff like that. So what I would like to ask you is so maybe talk a little bit about how you feel about the ways in which that the ways that manga are sort of publicized in the United States and also Canada if you want, if you feel like you can talk about that too, but particularly the United States. And do you feel like manga publishers can do better and distributors can do better and things like that? How do you feel about that? Or do you feel like it's not bad and maybe there isn't so much that we need to do? But how do you feel about it?
Well, I think, you know, how manga is publicized in America is a niche within a niche, right? So not even comic books are really that well publicized in America compared to how it is, you know, a part of everyday reading habits in, say, France or in Japan, right? Whereas, you know, like I was posting pictures earlier, like every time I go to Japan, you know, there's ads for the latest volume on all the subway stations, or, you know, on the trains, or, you know, you'll see posters, and, you know, it's part of it. It's not just like volume 1, but it's like volume 35 is out, you know. Like I remember going into Shinjuku State, huge poster for like the latest volume of Skippy. Skippy
still sells well for us, I have to say.
Well, that's good, because Skippy's awesome.
It is
good.
So when manga doesn't really get publicized very well, because like a lot of don't know about what the latest manga is, you know. And so sometimes it just like, and even anime fans, for fuck's sake, anime. Oh, sorry, anime fans, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, I really love this anime, and then they don't even know there's a manga, that it came from a manga.
Yep.
So
I definitely see that a lot too.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like, it was funny. Like, they like, because like on top of like my substitute teaching work, like I do like after school work too, and that's kind of like a space where like I can kind of like have like different sort of conversations with the kids that like I can't really sort of have like, you know, in the classroom or whatever. But generally, like, you know, a lot of kids like are like, you know, huge fans of anime. You know, from like K through 6 to 7 to 12, like grade. And like, it's interesting to like, like for me, like it was weird because I was shocked that there was this one girl who just like didn't know much about manga, but she was like really, really into like anime and everything like that. And she was like, wait, it's anime? Like, come from? Like, some anime come from manga? Like, she was like stunned. She was like blown away. And I was like, oh no, yes, like yes, this is very true. And like, and I think that's really interesting because like it's one of those moments that is really interesting because like there are just like different ways of publicizing. It's not just sort of like, here's a poster, let's do this thing over here. It's like that word of mouth, like talking with like other people, telling them about certain things. That's like pretty big. And for me, like it was interesting because I thought about the fact that I made that assumption. And I was like, oh, like she's in the 5th grade. Like she's like 9 or 10. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that she may know in terms of like the stuff that she's, you know, seeing online or whatever. But there's a lot that she probably does not know because of like just like her age and like what she's interested in and what she wants to like focus on or whatever. You know, so yeah, that was interesting. That was pretty interesting.
I think also something that was a real benefit, you know, when like, you know, we were kids, you know, in the late 90s and early 2000s when the boom was happening, was that stores like Barnes & Noble and Borders, it was a new thing and they were displayed a certain way and they were pushed a certain way that doesn't happen as much anymore. And I don't know, I think maybe
Barnes & Noble actually doubled their manga section within the last 2 years. I mean, they made a big deal.
And I haven't been into many Barnes & Noble lately because I'm shopping at my own shop. But you know, but I think in general, but then there's the other question is how many people are going to Barnes & Noble as much as they used to, you know, with Amazon and with you know, places you can even buy things through Barnes & Noble online. And I wonder if that's making an impact as well, that not having that same like not novelty, but it was very much like, oh my God, suddenly here's Sailor Moon. I remember Sailor Moon from TV, you know.
I don't think there's a lot of tie-in, like most Barnes and Nobles, like compared to a comic book shop. A comic book shop, you're dealing with people about what's out there, and they can offer recommendations and so on. I've like picked up manga at Barnes and Noble, like back then, a couple of years ago, I picked up there was Sailor Moon, right? There was a reissued Sailor Moon. I took it up to the counter and paid for it, and the girl at the counter goes, "We have that."
Oh my god! Oh dear!
Manga again, and like she was like kind of stunned, and it's like, this is your story,
Yikes! That's amazing.
So
it's
and then all shelved alphabetically. So if you don't know what you're looking for,
right,
you're not going to get great recommendations from how it's shelved at Barnes and Noble. I'll say that right at the top.
Yeah.
It just says new, or it says,
oh yeah,
that's it, or hot manga based on anime. That's it, but it doesn't say like, if you like horror, check out this Junji Ito.
Yeah.
Okay, so I nothing like I'd love to hear your thoughts on is manga scanlation, and as I remember, there was a thread I believe that you were a part of that like was pretty that talked about like I can't remember who else was in that thread, but it was a pretty awesome thread talking about scanlation and talk about the issues with it and like the right, just like not just like the ethics of it, but just like the sort of like issues that come with taking money out of the pockets of like creators and stuff like that. And I really sort of want to hear your thoughts on that and how you feel about scanlation, and maybe are there particular things that you feel sort of general manga fans aren't like informed about? Do you feel like there's something that they should know that might sort of change their minds about how they think about actively like reading scanlations?
I'm afraid to open my mouth on this one. It's like scanlation comes up. That's like the tar baby. That is like, as soon as I stick my hand in, it's just the tar baby and sucks me in. And it just won't let go. And then it's like, whoa, but actually, and have you considered? And it's like, oh.
It's true though.
Seriously. So, by the nature of what I post and whatever, I'd say roughly every 4 months or so, there's a scanlation thread where either I start or someone else starts, and I get sucked in whole afternoon explaining shit to people.
Yeah,
so
and
it's kind of like right now I'm kind of like got this attitude of like, kind of like being like that person at the library who gets asked the same question over and over again.
I gotcha.
I
gotcha.
But it's I get that it's out there. I get scanlation. That's how a lot of people discover stuff. It's a really complicated subject because I usually when I talk about this with publishers, and I usually explain that there's a spectrum. There's the white side of the spectrum, there's the black side of the spectrum, and then there's the gray, lots of shades of gray in the middle. The white end of the spectrum is I only buy official releases, and I'm definitely going to do that. I never read scanlations. On the black side of the spectrum is the screw the publishers and screw everybody else, because I deserve free access to all this stuff, and I know what's wrong. Stop me. And then most people are in between, which is kind of like there's people who set up their own moral guidelines, like I'll only be scanlation if the English version isn't available, or I'll only isolation because obviously the American publishers are never going to publish Devilman, you know, stuff like that. And then there's you know, different shades of nitpickiness, like, oh well, I don't want to buy the official version of Sailor Moon because they mangled the translation. It's terrible. It's unreadable. You know what I mean?
If you read it, just buy it.
I can't answer to all those questions. And then there's on the white end of the spectrum is the people who just genuinely don't know. Like they did a simple Google search and the first thing that popped up was the scanlation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't know. It looks legit to them. You know, I've met anything from kids to very well-paying adults, adults with very, very good jobs who should know better. Good jobs work in technology and should know better. Okay, I'm gonna say it. It's like it was an engineer at Uber. You know, I've been reading this and this and this and this and this, and I'm like, started looking at it and go like, hey, wait, English. What are you doing? Oh yeah, it's all online, you know? And then, you know, so the thought bubble in my head is like, I hope you get a virus from all this. I hope a swarm of malware just kind of machine because you deserve this.
Yep.
Let's just say that was the worst. If he was trying to pick me up and get me interested in talking with him further. Anyway, so with scanlation, you know, I guess what I'm saying is it's a complicated subject, and everyone is going to make their own decisions about what they will do about it. I personally think what's the problem with it is that a lot of times it takes advantage of fans who translate out of passion and puts it up on aggregator sites. And those aggregator sites are the one who are making millions of dollars, like thousands of dollars off of Google ads.
Yeah.
The actual people who translated and scanned it and cleaned it up aren't making a dime. Just as the creators and the publishers aren't making a dime, so are the people who spent all that time translating and doing all that work.
Yeah. So,
you know, I've met people who are, you know, fan translators, and you know they're really proud of being part of this circle to make about this series. It's so awesome, and you know they take time out of their day to do this, and they get no money. They get no recognition. You know, maybe they do it for ego. I don't know, or like even on the spectrum of scanlators, I think there's like some people who I think are doing it with some shred of their rationale. Yeah, and there's some people who are doing it just because they're being jerks. Like the people, you know, like the people who like get like the latest chapter of One Piece and translate it and post it before even the Japanese fans can read it.
Yeah,
that's lame.
Woof.
That's super lame.
Yeah, yeah.
And the people who do that deserve to get their house raided. And
yeah. That's rough. I mean,
that creates this way where people like, well, it's you know, the scanlation came out earlier. It's like, and so I have friends who work at Viz and be like, you know what, sucker? We can't get it out any faster than this because we're publishing on the same day Japan gets it.
Yeah.
So if you're making this argument like the scanlation is faster and therefore it's superior, you know, I don't like most of my friends who like are in that same situation. They're like, you know what? I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
You're unreachable.
Yeah.
It gets to the point like do you really love manga, or really do you really love this manga if you're not willing to pay for it? You know, like if you're not willing, like, okay, even if you're not willing to pay for it, if you're not willing to like try to be honest as much as you can about it, like do you care in truth? Like I've seen a lot of like scanlation circles who on their scans will be like, please, you know, this was a not-for-profit thing. If this ever comes out in English, make sure you support the, you know, the original creator. And I do feel like they're being earnest about it, and it is like a passion project. But you know, yeah, they're the audacity of some people. I'm like, how, like I'm sorry, like, you know, you don't care about, you you know, Billy Bat if you're not willing to pay Naoki Urasawa for it. Like, you know, if you're not willing to put money in his pocket, then I don't know. Like,
well, but this is like what a lot of scanlators don't get to is that they say, "Oh, well, we'll take it down as soon as the official version is up." And you know what? That's not possible.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Once something is uploaded to the internet, it is there forever.
Yes.
So
And-
don't make like, you know, that little disclaimer, you know, makes you somehow more noble. Sorry.
No, yeah.
No, true.
Yeah. And one thing that really kind of like bothers me is so I kind of consider myself to be part of like the sort of YouTube like manga community or whatever, people that like, you know, talk about the manga that they're reading, have discussions and stuff like that. And one thing that kind of bothers me is it's odd because like people don't want to like I feel like the general sort of consensus is we don't want to shift our own sort of schedule around like 2 days. Like we want to react to these manga. We want to talk about these manga on the day that the scanlations come out. That's what we want to do. And they don't want to do that on Monday because like the fans might not follow them, and the subs might not follow them. This is our source of income. Da 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 da. There's a lot of like, you know, bobbing and weaving, sort of like avoid like the very real discussion that's like, hey, like this whole sort of community and what's going on in that instance, like is like very much so hurting, like not it's hurting like everyone involved, except for the people that are sort of like doing the stuff. Like, and I think that a lot of people don't even recognize how like just like how those sort of like aggregator sites like make money off of these things. Some of them think that I think a lot of fans think that they're just doing it for free. Like all of them are doing it for free. They just do this because like out of the goodness of their own hearts.
Yeah, right.
Like, no, no, right? And then there were the ones who will like post videos, you know, have spoilers in the in the titles with pictures, and they'll post stuff on Twitter, and it'll just be like. It's like, come on, you know, it's just like stuff like that. I think like that should not be a difficult thing to like move away from, but you know, but it's hard.
But
for whatever reason, it's up.
People are jerks. Like, no, I mean, not all people, but I mean, like, you know, like Hiramashima, who does the fairy tale. Like there was he was at years back and he had a Q&A, and some people started asking him questions about things that were happening in future chapters that were not published in English yet. And so people, the editor kind of had, the English editor kind of said, you know that's not out in English, right? You know, yeah. And like, you know, and so finally he had to, you know, people had to point out to the guy, it's like, you know what, you're basically telling this Japanese creator that you are stealing his work.
Yep.
And you're unapologetic about it. And you're saying it to his face, and he's too Japanese and polite through you, mister.
That's crazy. Oh my God.
Okay. I wanted to talk about one more thing. Maybe we could do that for like maybe like the next like, I don't know, 5 minutes. Cause I don't know, I know like I don't know how you are on time, Deb. But I really wanted to talk about sort of like manga sort of like publishers and kind of like representation, and what do we feel like are sort of like the works that are coming out like right now and like 2017 but also 2018, like just recently, like recent works that we feel like are just ignored by like manga fans that probably should be reading them. Like for me, like one thing, and it's just sort of an example. So I feel like one text that I just recently got in the mail, and like I'm like really looking forward to reading. Well, two texts. One is My Brother's Husband. I'm really looking forward to reading that one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
And the other one is My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. So I'm looking forward to reading both of those. And I feel like a lot of people have like zero clue that like they exist, or that they're like big names and that they are texts that are like critically acclaimed and like do really great work and important work. But people are like, wait, what? Like, what is that? And so I think part of like where I kind of want like this sort of like end discussion to go is sort of maybe just like talking about like texts that you feel like manga fans definitely should like read, and maybe mention like the publishers that they're from if you know, and if you don't know, just maybe just talk about like texts that you feel like manga fans should definitely like check out, like maybe like 2 or 3 texts if you want to do that. If you have more, you can you can always mention more because they can watch this video and they can like pause and write things down and right. So
I will say in regards to my lesbian experience with loneliness, that's one that we have been selling like hotcakes at my store. And now I make a point of making sure we're the gay manga store. So we've got a lot of titles like that and things that we could try to keep in stock. But there were several times where we had to wait while 7 Seas got new shipments out to distributors because they were doing really well with it, and like I think better than they thought they were doing. And it is something that's selling, I think, not just to manga readers. That's something I'm selling across the board, with to queer customers and things like that. I absolutely think it's important to read. I think the sequel's coming out in June, My Solo Exchange Diary. And 7 Seas, I think, is using all that good lesbian money to make more queer stuff that's coming out, within the year. So there's just so much. I mean, The Bride Was a Boy, I mentioned earlier, is an autobiographical title by a trans woman. Claudine by Ryoko Ikeda is coming out, I think in May, which is also a really early, 70s, I think, or early 80s manga about a trans man, kind of before there was really a way to discuss that, I think, because they definitely refer to the title character as, a woman with the heart of a man, or a woman who's living as a man. But I'm, so those are things that I'm amazed that they're able to do. And it surprises me that manga readers don't know about it unless they're just specifically reading, Shonen Jump only, because they've been huge, in terms of what we do in our store and what I've noticed the publishers doing. So.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I think about recommending manga. I mean, the resistance I hear is, oh my God, I can't commit to a super long series. Don't make me force me to make a couple $100 investment in just a story. There's also I want to read something that's relevant to me and my interests in what I'm an adult. I'm not a kid, and things like that. So it was interesting because my lesbian experience with loneliness kind of tapped into 2 of those things.
Yeah.
One is it's the single volume, and 2, it's a subject that really never gets covered in American comics.
Yeah.
Or not in that way. So and the title's provocative, or I think hungry for nonfiction content.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different graphic novels that talk about mental, like a hyperbole and a half, for example.
Right.
Or Marbles by Ellen Forney. There's several that talk about different, like I think Marbles is about her manic depressiveness, for example. So there's a lot of it. I think it's just to recognize that where manga has something in common with other graphic novels, not just manga to manga recommendations. Like sometimes, like one of my friends who is a comic seller at Dr. Comics and Mr. Games, Nick World, he talks a lot about how he's able to sell Dorohedoro to people who read Saga.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That makes yeah. Saga,
or recommending Delicious Dungeon to people who games. Silver Spoon, for example, is really interesting. I think possibly is really interesting in a lot of ways because it's done by the creator of, but it's basically a story about a guy, a boy who goes to a agricultural high school, and it gets really into to what it's like to be in a farm, and it's really funny and it's interesting and it makes you think about eating meat, like like what's the ethics of that, how hard farmers work, how hard it's sometimes for them to make a living. It's pretty unflinching because Hiromu Hokkaido to a farming family, I think a dairy farmer family. But this comes from her space of, the story is fictional, but it comes from a real place of knowing. When I thought about it, I was like, is there any comics about farm life at all in America?
Yeah, not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, maybe there are, but they're not like, nothing like mainstream. Definitely.
No, like maybe like a zine that somebody, photocopied at Staples or something. But maybe.
That's one I think would be really interesting to promote to people who are interested in food issues or interested in farming, or rural economies and stuff like that. People who grew up in farms. That's kind of, it's really interesting manga.
Yeah, I like that. Like that'd be a fantastic idea because I mean, it's like people. I'm like generally obsessed with like cooking, like shows and documentaries and stuff like that. So I think something about like farming and the like sort of the episodes that really go into that, like the agriculture and farming and like I think there was this one chef, I think his name is Dan Barber, and like he's like a really big like chef where his sort of like motto is like you should know where your food comes from. And like his restaurant's really big about like making sure that like they have their own farm and they have their own sort of like facility and everything like that, and everything that they cook in their restaurant comes from like that farm and everything like that. So pretty cool. Like I would like a comic, like if there was a comic that like could sort of show, could have like, I don't know, like what's that word I'm looking for? There are too many words. Like when you have too many words, like you tend to like forget what word you're looking for. But like a comic that could like really like encapsulate that sort of like same feeling. Where like maybe the character would be like a chef or something like that, and they're just like talking about like something that they're trying to do. And maybe the art could do great work in that regard. Because like they're a cooking manga and people love cooking manga.
Yeah.
So
that's, Zandra, you were saying this before too. One of the nice things about manga is that there are so many like really niche subjects. And though the stuff that we get, in North America is definitely going to fall into certain categories, there's still a lot more variety of story than what's available in Western comics, which is changing in Western comics little by little. But there's so much stuff that's like, I can't really find an equivalent to like a josei like drama manga in Western comics. Like I can't find Pink. I can't find Sakuran in
entertaining.
Right, yeah, like I just can't. That doesn't really exist. And again, as more and more comics creators in the West grow up with manga, that's changing. But it's still, that's one of the things, and it's what I strive to do too, and why I strive to recommend both to people when I have them asking, for recommendations, is because there's something for everyone, right? There's some strange little, like very niche, thing for like there's like for me it's always like occult detective stories with like horrible monsters and like depressing moralization, like things like Pet Shop of Horrors or like Yokai Rental Shop is a new one now that I'm enjoying because it's ridiculous. It's not necessarily that it's great, but it's like this weird little thing that I like that I can't find anywhere else.
Yeah. I'm also enjoying my Darling Alien. It's like a 1-volume manga about a salaryman who marries an alien woman, and then she has to disguise herself as human. It's really cute. It's only 1 volume. I think the author died, so I think that was just the end of it. But it was
That's interesting.
it's really dear because if you can read it through the lens of a multicultural relationship, where you know they're trying to understand where each other's coming from, and the in-laws, and it's kind of and there's gestures that the husband makes to try to understand his wife's culture, her trying different foods, and it's really dear. It's a really nice little manga about a relationship from different backgrounds. It is wrapped in plastic because there is some nudity, but not to the point where it's just gross.
Yeah.
That's from Young Press.
Very nice. Zandra, do you have any titles that you would suggest? They don't even have to be recent titles necessarily, because I think that kind of limits what people will feel like they should read, I guess. But how do you feel about it?
Everyone already listed the ones I was going to say. There's some good stuff, but one like very recent one. Then I don't really know what the word on the street is, or what just how titles are being received right now, because I'm only in my little circle of social network. But I hope So I'm a Spider, So What is working out, because I love it so much. Because it's
I hear a lot of good things about that one.
It's very cute.
I love that it's the typical okay, you get a second chance to make a life in a different world, in a fantasy world, but also first of all, it's a lady protagonist, and that's rare, and also oh yeah, she's this rank and file spider monster in a dungeon. So it's okay, it's I was I don't know, as such it's very relatable to be okay, here you're in this grand setting, usually you can be a hero, or no, you're just one of the tiny monsters that everyone steps on, but survive somehow. And then yeah, no, she does her best to make it work, and you root for her so much. And yeah, it's also, I really like how the author of how the artist depicted her as a spider, because I think I have never seen a cute spider before, and that's an adorable character design. That's really really neat. And yeah, it's just I'm a huge fan of it. I hope it goes well. And it's interesting to me because that's only something I recently learned, that there are light novels that, if they're popular enough, will get turned into manga. And and because I knew manga sometimes get turned into anime, but I didn't know manga could come from light novels, because
yeah, more and more recently too. There's a lot of light novels coming out, and that's bonkers and overwhelming in some ways. But
cool. The system for light novels in Japan is so fascinating. There's an online talent search kind of aspect to it, where you can write a successful series of light novels and get published. There's no equivalent.
Yeah,
that's just as a light novel author myself, I just did it myself, because I haven't really seen a lot of them here.
Yeah,
because a lot of for example, a lot of great story in them. I would hear a lot of times about people saying, "Oh, I want to do this manga, I want to do this comic, but I need to find an artist, any artist that will share my vision and do it for free, because we're in it together and we're going to share the future profits, all this kind of stuff." And it's no, that's not going to happen.
Nope.
Somebody, and two. So, you're going to get someone to invest months and months and months of their time to draw your story for free. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I used to tell people, if it's a great story, why don't you just write a novel?
Yeah.
Then you're dependent on nobody.
Yeah.
That's literally kind of what led to me making them, because I'm a decent artist. I've tried to make comics, but they take so much energy. But I mean, yeah, I can I can write 20,000 words. I can draw 10 things. That's totally something I can do. And that's worked out for me. So I'm like, I'm really happy that a friend of mine introduced me to the concept of light novels, because it's been like the thing I've been wanting to make, and I'm actually physically capable of doing. And it's gotten to the point where, oh, cool, I make like they're just successful enough for me to be able to commission artists to do 10 things, which is something very reasonable to ask someone. And now I can just focus on the writing. It's the best.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So this has been going on for like an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, but that's awesome. That's like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But of course, like this is something I definitely want to be like probably a monthly thing. I think monthly makes more sense. Just like people, you know, because people are busy. People have lives. We're doing things. You know, so I would
really trip in Berlin.
Deb showed up. Nobody's busier than her.
But like I really want this to be not just a month thing, but I really want this to be one of like sort of like important mainstay on this channel. Like again, like I've told like you all, this is really important to me, like inclusion, representation, getting the voices of extremely brilliant, intelligent, and supremely capable women out there, and for like I just don't want any more like excuses from dudes, not just cis-het dudes, but just like dudes who like, you know, will just willfully ignore all of this information that all of you are putting out here, all the work that you're doing. No. So I'm so happy, and like, I don't know, there's just all these feelings. Like, I guess like the feels is what I'm feeling right now. But right? But it's really, really awesome. And I'm so glad that like, you know, people can come out and people like think that this is a great concept, and that we can keep pushing with this and, you know, talk about different things. Because I don't just want to talk about manga, but like, you know, video games, anime, whatever it is that like, you know, all of you women are doing and are writing about and are producing and are distributing and all those things. I want to put that out there. So once again, just like, thank you all so much for being here. It means a lot, and I think it's really, really important. Not just for like, you know, all of us who were involved, but just like my subscriber base, which I think is largely men, to see this. So like, hey, like these women are out here doing amazing, amazing work, and you need to be aware of them. And there are other amazing, amazing women doing incredible things, and you need to be aware of them. So again, thank you for being here. I'm going to, no problem. And if you just want to like say like something very quickly before we like end the stream, go for it. Please. Just like a little like, you know, ending or something, like a message or anything you want to say to my subscribers and people that will be watching this video. And you can take your time, don't worry about it. Like,
I just want to say thank you to everyone. And again, Anime Boston's coming up, and my store is going to be there. And even if you don't get a chance to come by and buy anything, that's fine. You can always come say hello to me.
Cool.
Or at my store in Kenmore Square in Boston. Kamakopia.
Awesome. Deb, is there anything that you'd like to sort of advertise? Like, is there anything that's going on? Anything that manga and anime fans should probably be aware of? That they might not be aware of?
Well, Zach will probably kill me, but I'm working on a new column for them.
Oh,
so.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's the nerd writing pool again.
All
so
right.
maybe look for that in the next maybe couple of weeks.
Awesome.
Okay.
So I'm going to be in San Francisco next week reporting on a new video game launch from Bandai.
Ooh.
And I'm currently writing a story about the Square Enix virtual reality manga that's
Wow.
going to be released on.
Awesome.
Which is it's a VR. It's a fully immersive VR chapter of Tales of Wedding Rings, which is a manga from. It's really well done. I was at the Square Enix office in Tokyo about a month ago, and tried it out, and I think it's one of the nicer representations of manga in VR form. So it'll be released in a couple of weeks. I did an interview with the producer, and so you'll be seeing that very soon.
Very cool. Very cool.
Also, read Golden Kamuy because that shit's awesome.
Yeah, I gotta get on that.
Me too.
Very wonderful. And Zandra.
Yes. I mentioned it. I recently ran a Kickstarter, and like my my latest book. My friends and I were granted 3 wishes by a cat goddess, and I swear I got distracted when my turn came around. Is going to be available at my shop at shop.zandravandra.com very soon if you want, and just follow me on Twitter at ZandraVandra if you want to hear about that stuff. My next book should be coming out digitally this month. It's called I Signed Up to Be the Substitute Familiar of a Struggling Witch to Pay My Bills, and I'm just now realizing what I got myself into. It's about witches and familiars and magic, and I'm really stoked about it.
And that's all awesome. I love it. Witches, anytime like I hear witches and familiars.
In a jar, and then you came up with these titles because
it's like those magnetic word like poetry that you do on like
It's gotten to be like a running joke on Twitter because sometimes like people will just talk about something and it's it strikes like in my inspiration, like, oh yeah, and I just like write this like just very purposefully long and convoluted like fake like novel titles, and like one will get like 150 likes, and I'll go like, oh, actually, maybe I should do this.
Yeah.
So it adds to the list of the next books I make, and it's
awesome.
That's great market research.
All right, so I'm going to end the stream here. Thank everyone who came out to view this live stream. Y'all are awesome. People who are in the live chat, thank you for the kind words. And of course, once again, like thank all of you for coming and being a part of this discussion. It was awesome. It was amazing. And it was great. And I'm going to end the stream here. Okay, I'm the Black Manga Critic. And like I usually do, I'm out.